Welcome, everybody. My name is Dr. Achal Bhagat. I am a psychiatrist and psychotherapist at Apollo Hospital. And I also head an organization called Saarthak. Uh, I have many other hats, but today I'll focus on my mental health hat. Uh, so thank you for joining. It's difficult times. Everybody's going through a very, very tough experience, uncertain times. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to share a presentation with you, and I'm going to talk you through it. And towards the end, I don't think we'll have time because it's a short duration that we're meeting for. It's about half an hour. But if there are questions, I will probably kind of encourage you to contact either Sangeeta ji or Shalin with those questions, and somebody from my team can mail you back if there are any questions that arise out of this seminar. So I see a lot of names here. I don't know people from your organization. This is the first time I'm interacting with your organization. But I know a lot of you are faculty of an engineering college, and you're trying to help young people, and that's a very important job that you're doing. And it's extremely important at this time because people will need all the skills after we come out of COVID-19. We will need to innovate on skills and reskill ourselves and reskill the people that we work with to survive. So let me start with my presentation. Just give me a second. Right. So as I said, I'm a psychiatrist. I work at Apollo Hospital. This is a brief program. This is called I Thrive. We do it for corporates. We do it for universities, students, and this is kind of a curtain raiser for that program. Let's start by talking about what are the similarities between all of us. If we were able to interact, somebody would have said that we all think, somebody would have said we all feel, somebody would have said we are all human. So when I talk to people, I find that there are four similar pursuits that we all have. We all want dignity in our lives, and we all want togetherness in our lives. We all want purpose in our lives, and we all want control in our lives. I have met no one in my life till now who does not want dignity in their life, who does not want to be together with the people that they love, the people that they belong to. We belong to different groups of people, our family, our communities, our religion, our religious inclinations, our academic institutions, our old school groups, our WhatsApp groups. We all seek togetherness. And right now, togetherness is one need that has been challenged the most. But at the same time, I think dignity is being challenged every day as well. Doctors coming from Haryana into Delhi are being stopped from going to do their work. Their dignity is challenged. People are in quarantine. They have stickers on their house. Their dignity is challenged. Some people are not getting food. Some people are walking back home hundreds of miles, thousands of miles. And the images of dignity being challenged makes us uncertain about and worried about our own dignity as well, and fear for our own dignity as well. Of course, we all need purpose in our lives. For our lives to be meaningful, we need to begin a day knowing that there is a purpose to what we're doing, and complete the day thinking that we've completed that purpose, or we will complete it. So we all work with a purpose. That's extremely human, to be purposeful and meaningful. And we want control in our lives. We do not want to be helpless. We want for people to give us control over our decisions. We want to participate in decisions regarding our lives. There are farmans being issued sometimes. Today we had a farman or a RWA group, WhatsApp group, that XYZ things will not happen. People will not post on the WhatsApp group. People will first post to the management committee, and then if they think right, they will post it on the group. This loss of control in small things in our lives is creating extreme helplessness. Of course, the fact of the virus and the fact of the worry about our families, about ourselves, about our livelihoods is also leading to significant helplessness. So, when we are looking at dignity, togetherness, purpose, and control, we are moving away from abuse, suffering, helplessness, and isolation. So we want to move away from this quadrant to this quadrant. I'm using a scientific word because I think I'm talking to engineering college faculty, so quadrants would be familiar to us. And the closer that we move to this side of our journeys, the less stressed we are. The more we move towards this side of the journey, the more stressed we are. Unfortunately, we are more towards this side nowadays than towards the dignity, togetherness, purpose, and control side. Let's move on. Uh, so, mental health sometimes is confused with mental illness. Mental health and mental illness are a continuum, and it's all right to have mental illness as well. There are 200 mental illnesses. 25% of people in our country live with one or the other. In times of stress, this number rises to 40%. At times, it's almost a bigger epidemic than COVID in some ways, with longer term effects. But mental health is universal. Everybody needs mental health. Like everybody needs physical health. Everybody needs to be healthy. Everybody needs to be able to walk, breathe, think properly, so that they can fulfill the potential of their life and have a good quality life. So we all want dignity. We all want purposefulness. We all want togetherness. We all want control in our lives. And that pursuit is positive mental health. But how do we get this? We get this through our thoughts and feelings and interactions. We cannot achieve dignity, togetherness, purposefulness, and control without interacting with those around us, without thinking and without feeling. It is when our thoughts become unhelpful or our feelings overwhelm us or we withdraw from our interactions or become overactive in our interactions that we move away from mental health to negative mental health impacts. Right. So who all are affected in times of COVID-19? As I'm saying, all of us have mental health needs. There are a number of people who are facing adversity due to COVID-19, either because of the positive status or because of the fact of being 60. Everybody's talking about as if being over 60 was something dispensable. Everybody was saying, but the deaths are going to be over of the people over 60. Imagine what impact it will have on people who are over 60 or nearing to be 60. People are talking about a large percentage of the population as being dispensable in the decisions that they're taking. People are showing negative mental health impacts. Some people are extremely worried. Some people are extremely anxious. Some people are depressed. Some people, there's another group, people who were already living with mental health problems. People who had depression, mood disorders, schizophrenia, or were using substances who were already unwell. So in my view, if we were to divide the population into 4 groups, it's working with group number 1 and group number 2 that is more important. And we all fall in group number 1 and group number 2, because if we take preventive steps, then we can stop ourselves from becoming members of group number 3 and group number 4, which means that we can stop ourselves from having negative mental health impacts. But even if you are having negative mental health impacts, believe me, it is treatable. It is, you can help yourself, you can seek help. And it's important to remember it's all right to seek help. there are many myths and stigmas about mental health. Please don't fall for those. One, please don't assume that seeking help for mental health is some kind of a weakness. Second, not assume that mental health problems only happen to people who are inadequate or incompetent or weak. Third, do not think that people with mental health problems are dangerous. All of us can have mental health problems one day or the other. And most of us, in one way or the other, as we proceed through this conversation, we realize that we are showing some symptoms of mental health problems. So what do I find people are thinking or feeling at this point of time? Let me just talk about that for a minute. Some people are benumbed. They don't know what's happening. Some people are in denial. They think everything's going to be switched off like in a minute. Some people are showing bravado. The opposite of helplessness is bravado. Sometimes you show yourself, you mask yourself, your helplessness, and show that you're too brave, and thus cope with your problems. But there's a high prevalence of psychological vulnerabilities in the community. People are feeling uncertain and helpless. There is a sense of negative self-appraisal, which means that people are saying that I cannot do anything about what is happening around me. मेरे से होगा नहीं, किसी से कुछ नहीं होगा. This negative self-appraisal is precipitating helplessness and hopelessness. Sometimes when people are feeling helpless, they, as I said, do the opposite. They start taking risks. अगर कुछ हो ही नहीं सकता, then might as well go ahead and do what you want to. These will be the people who are without masks. Sorry, is that somebody trying to address me or? Anyway, moving on. There is increased risk-taking that is happening from people. And then mostly if you sit with people who are taking increased risks, these are the people who are feeling helpless within themselves. And as I said, there's increased incidence of psychological disorder. There's also a relapse of psychiatric disorder. People who were already unwell have less access to care now, and less access to medicines, less access to psychological care. And some of the people are relapsing because of that. And also in India, a lot of emphasis is on caregiving by the family. So a lot of people who are being cared for by their family, now the caregivers have significant needs that they need to fulfill. They need to take care of the everyday chores. They need to look out for the virus. They need to go out in a certain manner. They are worried about their livelihoods as well. So there is likely to be a caregiver burnout. And at that time, if an organization or if as teachers, if you're teaching online, you expect the same from your students or expect the same from yourself. Unfortunately, the stress will increase. And extremely important to realize that that's not very helpful to do, that you think of it as business as usual. It will mean that you're precipitating burnout. Lastly, there is what is called foreshortened view of the future. What do I mean by that? Normally, we divide our time into past, present, and future. And this division of time helps us. Why? Because we can leave our problems in the past. We can be occupied and be purposeful in our present. And we can expect change in future. When we do expect change in future, we have hope. But unfortunately, when we are in a disaster-like situation, future does not seem to be obvious to us. So if I were to ask somebody, what would you want to do in 2 years' time or 5 years' time? They would say, "Abhi to pata nahi ji, pehle ye to kate." Let this pass first, and we will think about the future later. This lack of this futurelessness, let's say, is also precipitating hopelessness in people. So the takeaways are that some people are benumbed, some people are denying, some people are feeling too brave, some people are feeling helpless. Many people are blaming themselves and challenging, are feeling less confident. A number of people are taking more risks, and a lot of us are having burnouts because we are the primary caregivers of our families, and we have multiple roles and demands to fulfill, and there is a foreshortened view of the future. Uh, let's move on. Some of these things I've already said. Uh, Let me focus on one thing out of this slide, that is the intent and impact assumptions. What is also happening is that, uh, let me give you an example. There, we all, when we are in a relationship, when we communicate in a relationship, either it's at organizations or in our neighborhoods or in our families, when we communicate, we are always trying to figure out in our minds what, why is the other person doing what they're doing. वो ऐसा क्यों कर रहा है? Now, and we have an assumption about that. For example, I meet a friend in the market, they look past me. I might think वो ऐसा इसलिए कर रहा है कि वो अपने आप को बहुत बड़ा समझ रहा है. This is an intent assumption that I'm making about him. It might not be true. The person might be thinking of something else. The person might be trying to avoid an infection, thinking that I'm a doctor, I might be a carrier of an infection. People might have 100 reasons for the behaviors that they show. But in our mind, we might attribute an intent to their behavior. And mostly this intent is not very helpful and takes us away from people we love. The second assumption that we make is impact assumption, which means that we minimize the impact of our actions on other people. What do I mean by that? For example, I go out to get vegetables in this time. I take a lot of time and I come back later than I thought that I would. Everybody at my home is worried as to why I haven't called, why I haven't come back. In my mind, I'm saying it's only another 15 minutes. How does it matter? I'm making an impact assumption. I'm minimizing the possible impact of what is happening to other people because of my actions. So this is an impact assumption. Right. Another thing that is happening is work-life conflict. Now, we normally have work-life conflict. Work takes over our life. Work is our primary identity. Work determines who we are to a large extent. But when work is from home, uh, there is an enmeshment that happens. सब कुछ गुत्थम गुत्था हो जाता है. You know, we do not know when to put a boundary to what is happening and at work and what is happening in our life. Everything is mixed up, and this work-life conflict has become much more evident in the times of COVID-19. Obviously, this leads to an impact in our performance, and we are almost all of us are perfectionists by nature. All of us want 100% from ourselves, and when we are performing at 60 to 80%, we do not like it, and we keep on criticizing ourselves. So all this leads to a negative mental health impact. So having defined these problems, let me move on quickly to remind us that stress or mental health problems are a universal process. Everyone is affected by it, not just a few people. And then quickly move on to some solutions before we run out of time. So ask yourself, is the automatic cue becoming a negative person? Which means, I give this as an example. So if it were to start raining, what would you do? Would you take out an umbrella, or would you feel happy and want to dance? Now, if you were to take out an umbrella, you're thinking, oh, I should not become unwell, I should take care of myself. Your thinking is protective in some ways. If you would want to go out and dance, your thinking is creative and it is trying to break the boundaries for yourself. I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong. It is just showing that thoughts and feelings and actions are connected. Uh, and if your automatic thoughts and actions and feelings uh, are negative, then you need to learn to recognize them and you need to learn to challenge them. There are four uh, thinking mistakes that we normally make, apart from the intent and impact assumptions that I've already talked about. One is called all or none thinking. To give you an example, अगर मेरा IIT में एडमिशन नहीं हुआ तो मेरा जिंदगी खराब हो गई. All or none thinking. अगर थर्ड मे को लॉकडाउन नहीं खुला तो बहुत क्राइसिस हो जाएगा. Nothing in life is all or none. Everything is somewhere in the gray zone. One learns to manage things as they come. All or none thinking makes us feel more stressed all the time. So if you are having all or none thinking, look out for it and learn to challenge it. I will give you a name of a book which will allow you to, I can't tell you the methods of challenging it in this seminar, but maybe a name of a book which you could read might help. Then we have shoulds. I must do this, I must not do this. Shoulds lead to a lot of guilt. For example, I saw somebody on television from Orissa making, who was earning 40,000 rupees a month, uh, using whatever he had to try and feed people around him. Wonderful example, wonderful person. But that generated a should in me. I should be doing more than what I'm doing to help people around me. And that should, of being a duty bearer today, because everybody in the society is stressed. Uh, and if I make it a should for myself that I'm a duty bearer for everyone, it adds to my stress. I'm not saying neglect people, look past them. I'm not saying do nothing, but I'm saying remember that what can be done by a much larger group of people, by the community, by the society, by the government, cannot be done by an individual. So have your shoulds which are reasonable. Uh, Definitely thank the person who's taking the waste out for you and ask them if they have enough in their home to eat. Uh, but you can't start determining the world with your shoulds because you will only create more stress for yourself. The next thing is selective abstraction. Uh, a lot of selective abstraction is happening right now, which means that we are choosing to look at the data that we want at the personal level as well, and at the larger level as well. There's a lot of selective abstraction that is happening, which means that we're choosing uh, to say to ourselves that we have lesser numbers of infection when we have tested lesser number of people. It's selective abstraction. Similarly, in our lives, we choose to look at the negative, and we're saying nothing is happening in our lives, whereas a lot is happening in our lives at this point of time. A lot of restructuring, re-engineering is happening in our lives without our realizing it. We are getting a lot of time to rethink the purposefulness in our lives, rethink our identities, and this manthan will lead to some answers which will be long term. Uh, I'm not saying everybody will be a changed person after COVID-19, but if we were to allow all thoughts to come to us in a reasonable manner, which means that we do not minimize our strengths and do not magnify our limitations, if we be reasonable in our the way we look at our lives, then not minimizing and not magnifying will lead to more balanced way of looking at our lives. Lastly, we personalize a lot. This might not be true right now because we're not meeting too many people, but whatever happens around us sometimes, right now everything has been normalized. Everything is happening to everybody. But normally we personalize a lot and we think that all that is happening to us. All these thoughts then lead to what is called catastrophic thinking, uh, that we're thinking about the worst outcomes. I've already talked about the either or thinking, the all or none thinking, the magnification, the minimization, and the shoulds, the fixed rules. Are you doing any of these? If you are, then those are the cause of your stress. Uh, and learning to challenge these, just one tip on how to find out whether you're doing all of that. Start writing a diary every day as to what happened, how you responded in that time, what did you do, what did you feel, and what did you think. Take half an hour at the end of the day and document the day. It's extremely important because right now every day seems to be similar to the other days, and sometimes one forgets small things. One forgets that a child is playing with a doll. One forgets that uh, you cooked a vegetable that you had not cooked for 25 years. You forget that you had good sleep one day. One day you did not, and that's a different matter. But one day you did have good sleep. Uh, One day you had a memory from the past which was very important for you. If you document each day, you'll realize that one, you will realize the thinking errors that you're making, and second, you'll realize that every day is a different day, even if it seems similar. Are you, if this is happening, then you need to go out and seek help. If you're feeling detached, worried and tense, lost and alone, sad or irritable, unable to even enjoy for a minute, and lacking interest in your everyday life, and if this has magnified and is gradually worsening, and it is affecting you, affecting your thoughts, you're feeling more helpless and more hopeless, then it could be that you're feeling more depressed than you think that you are. Talking to a friend, reading a book about how to cope with depression, or if it's very, very uncopable, then seeking help from a psychiatrist. And there are psychiatrists available online whom you can talk to. Uh, it will be useful to seek help. Similarly, are you having repeated headaches, or do you have a loss of sleep which is continuous? Are you experiencing stomach and bowel problems for which there is no reason that you find? Are you sometimes having episodes of dizziness, sweating, tiredness, or sexual problems? Have you started smoking more than you used to? Although most smokers are saying they're not getting the cigarettes and alcohol is not available. Uh, I'm seeing memes all over the place which are ruining the fact that cigarettes and alcohol are not available. Uh, but if you are smoking or drinking more, then it could be a worrying sign. If you're avoiding people and situations, which means, of course, you're not meeting people face to face nowadays, but if you're avoiding phone calls, if you're postponing talking to family, if you are keeping quiet in a family Zoom meeting, if you are uh, staying within yourself, then it could be that you're becoming depressed or anxious. If you are becoming irritable, if you're becoming irritable with your children, if you're becoming irritable with your spouse, if you're becoming irritable with the people who are supporting you, or with your supervisor or bosses or organization, then you might be making intent or impact assumptions. Think about that. If you are always rushed and trying to do too many things at the same time, or if you're becoming forgetful or clumsy, then too you might be having a mental health problem. If you have any of these, seek help. This is what you can do for yourself. Uh, let me, you can accept the context, accept that there is risk, there is uncertainty, there's a significant amount of change in life, and that life is definitely unfair. Most of us want life to be fair to us. But at this point of time, and in my experience generally, most people think that life is fair, but at the end of the day, life is unfair. And accepting the risk, the change, the unfairness of life will allow us to accept ourselves. We need to care for ourselves by looking after what we eat, the way we sleep, the way we exercise, the way we talk to people. We need to respect ourselves by not enmeshing our work with our life all the time, by not being challenged in our dignity, not feeling so helpless that we cannot say no. Don't saying no is very important at times. Behaving responsibly, that means not taking risks, not uh, being impulsive, uh, not letting go of oneself, being responsible by not making those impact assumptions that we are making or intent assumptions that we are making. All this is a way of accepting yourself. And the last very important point that you can do to accept yourself is, this is the time to rethink about who you are. And I'm not talking in a spiritual manner. I'm talking in an everyday manner. What is the purpose of this day? Decide that and try and fulfill that. Find small little purposes. Making a plant survive is a purpose. Feeding the birds is a purpose. Doing an assignment is a purpose. Doing a webinar is a purpose. Uh, doing reading and reskilling yourself is a purpose. Find a purpose for every day, and also align this purpose to the larger meaning in life that you're looking for, and define that. Use half an hour every day to reflect upon what is the meaning of life for you, and how are you going to make it happen for yourself. uh, don't overdo it. If you keep on thinking about it all the time, it will become very confusing and very stressful. I think it's important to leave it to half an hour a day. Also, knowledge of the world needs to be limited. We need to catch up with the knowledge about the world. Being ignorant about the world is not very helpful. So have a catch up time. Uh, Catch up at mid morning 11:30 and catch up at mid evening 6:37. Stop the screen usage after 10:30, 11. If you are doing reversal of sleep cycles and Netflix meetings are happening, Netflix parties are happening at 3 o'clock in the morning, then obviously your chances of becoming depressed will be more. I'm going to take about 3 minutes more just to uh, kind of summarize again. Acknowledge stress, uh, be watchful of your thinking, uh, learn to relax. This is important. If you go on to the YouTube, there is something called JPMR, Jacobson's Progressive Muscular Relaxation. Now, there are many videos of it. I don't need to teach you it. Go onto the YouTube, learn that relaxation exercise. I know people will say we are doing yoga and we are doing other things. But if you're feeling anxious, this muscular relaxation exercise is very helpful. It's called JPMR, Jacobson's Progressive Muscular Relaxation. It's important. Also, learn to be playful even in these times. Learn to distract yourself on small things. For example, I distract myself with uh, counting the number of new leaves that have come up in a plant that I'm looking after. So exercising is very important. It's a good way of relaxing. Talk to your friends. Uh, Move the conversation away from COVID after the initial conversation about COVID. Stop yourself from saying the platitude. There are many platitudes that one is using nowadays. One of them is about COVID. We are generating more and more myths about COVID by saying things over and over again. कि कुछ नहीं हो सकता, statistics गलत है. These are all commonly said things. We are repeating ourselves. Testing नहीं हो रही है. Repeating these things is not a conversation. Have a conversation which allows you to explore other aspects of each other's life, relationships, but stop people from just complaining about, allow them to express, to complain about what is happening in their life, but help them to find the purpose and be meaningful, and help yourself to find the purpose and be meaningful. Do tell them how you're feeling. Expressing feelings is extremely important, but contain it. If you're expressing feelings all the time, you might end up criticizing people and feeling hostile towards them without realizing it. Stop an unhelpful coping, uh, smoking, drinking, eating too much, documenting. You know, I'm saying express your anger, but document it. Document what is causing it. Document how can you express it differently. Sometimes, if you do not express it, it will burst out. If you do express it and all the time, it will not help your relationships. Document if you're getting angry a lot. As I said, challenge your negative thoughts. The book that I was saying about challenging your negative thoughts is a book called Feeling Good by a psychiatrist in America called Dr. David Burns, Burns, Burns. Uh, it's a very good book. It's a bit tedious to read. It's available online as an ebook. The basic principle is how to get to know your negative thoughts and how to challenge them. You'll find it very useful in the long term as well. Uh, I have had this book for 30 years. I still read it from time to time to help myself overcome my negative thoughts. And everybody can have negative thoughts. Even psychiatrists can have negative thoughts. So don't worry if you are having negative thoughts. Thank you very much. You take care. And if there are questions, route them to me through Shalinji or Sangeeta ji, and we'll take it from there.